Good morning, YouTube. Another video from Exit Strategy. Welcome. This is Mochismo Eugene. Let's talk about how the narcissist wants to reconcile a problem that doesn't even exist. Yeah, these are some of the ways that they will try to attempt to reconcile a supposed indifference, debate, argument, misunderstanding, whatever you want in that blank, because at the end of this video I'm sure somebody's going to be able to relate to this if not everyone, because this is just one of many of a narcissist's tricks to both garner supply, admiration, adulation, attention, admiration, adulation, and most of all, it boils down to supply. And this does something for the narcissist. This actually gets their juices flowing, if you will. Even in a vicious, chaotic situation, you would think that a person would be a little bit concerned about how they're affecting another person, having you emotionally out of character. You're just a wreck, and they can stand there and look at you with a straight face like, what are you upset about? Why are you so emotional? Why are you so unlike yourself? It's disturbing, to say the least. I'm going to tell you guys a story that I was thinking about just here now, which is why I came on to make this video. This is when I was in the church, and you guys probably know the story how I reached out when I awakened in 2020. I reached out to this pastor that was the pastor of this narcissist church. Excuse me, guys. In the morning I'm always, I don't know, just burping, I guess, having coffee. So I was in this church. I ended up going to this narcissist church. I had told you guys that I had told her it was a possibility I wasn't going to attend or visit, but I ended up doing it anyway. This is how you get lured in by either them inviting you to dinner. They invite you to their family's house quick. They want you to meet the family like right away. But anyway, I ended up becoming, I don't want to say a member, because it's been years. I've never solemnly stood up and made the admonition of membership. I've always considered myself, if I went to that church, I pretty much considered myself a member, and I would do the landscaping and the grounds. That's always been my thing, because I do that for a living. So right away I became just a part of the whole. I figured like I should contribute my talents, my skills, which is what the Word of God says. If we do that as a church, we would have no need for these, I don't know, 41360, whatever. The number of which government uses is like tax exempt. Churches really don't supposed to be up under that administration, but that's deep dive and way off subject. Anyway, this kid who is a full-blown narcissist, one of those charismatic, wants to be an intellectual, neat freak, down low, gay, homosexual, just to demonstrate my point. That's what he was, hiding who he really was. He was married, looking at me, blinking his eyes, and all of this kind of foolishness. And when he would look at me and talk to me, you could see him like kind of just like he's, I don't know, about to go to sleep. Like he's just they get all into you, your spirit. Narcissists, straight or gay, doesn't matter. If they're a narcissist, this is what they do. They drink you up in conversation because they're analyzing you. But with this guy, he tried to draw me in when we first got introduced to each other in the church. You see, they gravitate to you. Narcissists gravitate to you right off the bat. They push their presence on you. So anyway, he was married, never saw his wife come to church. She came to church probably one time in the year that I was involved in that shit show. And she was bouncing around, they both looked like 3-year-olds. And so either both of them were narcissists, or she was a great codependent, just head in the wind, didn't know one way or the other. And so he kept her hid for a good reason, because she could have been, that would have given people a little more of who he was. So he would have rather stay mysterious and have all the focus on him. And that was a big point too. He probably just wanted all the attention for himself more than not. So it came a time in my intuition before I awakened. I always tell you guys this: you as empath and chosen ones, you've always been on point. You always knew and you felt something was out of place, out of joint. But you didn't have any way to put it in perspective. You knew the person was phony. You knew they was fake. You knew they was full of garbage, a facade. But you didn't know how to rightfully, well, you could call it that, but on the side of caution and apprehension and talking yourself out of what your intuition is showing you, you wanted to play nice. You wanted to go along to get along. You didn't want to ruffle any feathers. Stop me at any time. You didn't want to seem like you were better than that person. So you kept it to yourself. But you, at the same time, you were very apprehensive, and you kept them at a distance, if you will, as much as you could. But looking back, you know, these people, you show up, they show up. You're talking to someone, they blatantly get in your conversation with no problem whatsoever. Interrupt, will not say excuse me. So this guy was that kind of guy. And what he did was, he got in some type of, I don't know how it ended up. You never know how these debates start. But it was just a nonchalant debate. So obviously I stood ground on something, whatever it was. And I think he was just trying to push up on me, trying to enforce his friendship on me. And I was just poker faced, and it annoyed him, and it agitated him. So what they do is they get out of character and start acting, well, they get in character, start acting like 2-year-olds. And some kind of way, I guess he had a little tantrum or whatever. So indirectly, he went around behind my back and I guess told the pastor that seems like he's trying to get along with me, but it seems like I have a problem. And so what the pastor did, came to me with his gentle, soft-spoken approach. Hey, Calvin, I think I want to have a meeting with you and X at some point in time, whenever you're available, blah, blah, blah. And I was looking at him like, a meeting for what? And I anticipated this was just a shit show of some kind that this guy wanted me to, he really just wanted me in a position where he could leverage the pastor as to help him reassert himself into my space, basically. So this is how they extort your essence, if you will, in exchange with other people to try to get them to encourage you to play along. And so we get in this meeting, and I'm sitting there, and actually the narcissist I married, she was in there too. And I look back at that, man, and I'll tell you a story about me and my children driving to her house one day in the summer. The front door was open, and they were in the stairwell, this individual and the narcissist's wife I married. She had a long skirt on. They were sitting in the hallway, but the front door with the storm door closed was open. So when you drive by, and I parked right there just in front of the doorway on the curb, I could see her sitting there with her legs open with the skirt on, but obviously sitting down. I basically could see everything. You know, her having light pale complexion, and this guy was sitting 2 stairs down, sitting on the step, but he was turned to the side. So they were in the hallway having a conversation. And so as I pull up with the kids, he waves with a big stupid grin on his face. And so he would stop by her house unannounced on many occasions, And so I get out of the car, and this is shortly after that little friction, if you will, between me and him. And it was actually probably before the meeting. And I think this incident might have sparked that meeting. This is what pushed it over the top. So what he was doing, looking back, is he was trying to keep both of them were narcissists. So what they do is they have these little secret meetings and running into each other's at Walmart, and what they're doing is having these conversations of sort. He's trying to garner more intel about who I am through her, and they're pretty much in a pack. And so I walk in and I'm like, "What's going on, man?" I don't shake his hand. He's like, "Hey, how you doing, brother?" And I say, "You know what? One thing is for sure. I'm not your brother. For two, why are you here unannounced at someone's house? Even though it's not my house, I'm seeing this person. Why are you at her house?" As though you had to ask someone this. "Oh, I just stopped by to see sister." And I said, Did he call you, or did you make it known that you were stopping by?" "Well, I was just in the neighborhood." And I said, "I don't think that's appropriate." I said, "That's kind of weird. Even being of the same church or not, and how you guys are sitting in this hallway." I said, "This is really weird, it's spooky, it's disturbing." So I was able to call it for what it was. And you may say, "Well, wow, I think a little tad of jealousy kicked in." I'll be honest with you, any man walking into a person's house that you're seeing, a woman in this case, and they're sitting in compromising positions, it goes beyond jealousy. This is like a stab at your intelligence. So that's kind of where I was coming from. Plus, I didn't like this guy because his spirit did not sit well with me. And I say I didn't like him. I rarely hate anybody. I don't think I hate anybody. But the opposite of that, I don't like him. And that's just what it is. Empaths cannot like someone, but it doesn't mean we hate you. It's something about you we know all too well that other people would rather not speak on. And we damn well cannot like you because of that. And that was the thing that bugged me about him, and I just couldn't establish it the way I do now as what he was: dark, demonic, and disturbed. And so I think this incident is what really pushed that meeting into high gear. And so when we went into this meeting, I'm in here, and this pastor's like, "Well, what seems to be the problem with you two?" And I looked at the pastor as I'm looking in this camera, and I say, "You know what?" I say, "I'm not a little child, and this individual here, as much as we can tell, is not a kid either. Whatever he has called this meeting or discussion to be, it's not even necessary. I don't know what we're here to do. There is not going to be any apologies if that's kind of where we're going with it." I say, just to be blunt with you, a lot of things this individual is doing and has done does not really sit well with me. It's like he's enforcing his presence upon people, and I just don't think that's normal, and I don't think that's healthy, and I just don't think that's appropriate. And so that's my stance on that. There will be no apologies, and I'm just here to let you guys know that that's not something that I'm okay with. So I don't know what this meeting is all about, but that is what my stance is on that. And so the meeting went on to be whatever it was, and I guess he was trying to you brothers, you just gotta get along. And I said, "I'll shake his hand. We'll leave it where it's at." So I don't really wish to discuss any at length details about this. I just rather not. I say everything's okay. From this point on, everything is fine. And see, looking back at that incident, I didn't know what narcissist was. I hadn't woke up to it, but something was undeniable. I had to draw that line in the sand because I saw manipulation here, if nothing else. And I don't take kindly to that. And I believe I've always stood my ground on things, more so than I probably had to. had I understood what was actually being done. Because now, awakened, empath, chosen one, we don't have to struggle to make sense out of nonsense. We don't have to call a truce. We are the truce. We call the truce because of how we move and who we are. If we offend someone needlessly, recklessly, uncaringly, the empathy within us right way tries to rectify that situation. But one thing we don't do, we don't give fake, false, empty apologies. We'd rather just not give you one. Because when we stand on something, we stand on it. We are the light of this world, and we cannot be dimmed. Although we've been distracted, we've had our character distorted, you can't dim our light. Because the light that was put in us, we didn't put it there. Say it again. You didn't put the light that's in you. So you can't put it out, nor can they. So this meeting went totally not the way he wanted it to go, but it did. Because you gotta understand, they always garner some supply out of it. He was a little bit shortchanged because he saw that I was gonna be a hard nut to crack. And so what we continued to do as time went on, he ended up revealing to everyone kind of what he was in the church. And you could see he began being very reckless throughout the church, and even people that didn't understand what I understood to the degree I understood it, and I still wasn't aware of narcissistic personality. So it was a ton of narcissists, and no wonder these people played along so well. I am just so glad things happened the way it did in 2020 when I finally discovered and woke up. Because who knows how much longer I would have been in that church under that demonic demonstration. Because you gotta understand, there's been instances where there's been churches that have, in fact, there's an incident right here in the church in the adjoining little town where this 17-year-old was suspected of touching on his little half brother and sister, which the girl was his half sister. She was mulatto, mixed black and white. Guess the father had this older daughter by I guess a black woman, and she was a beautiful girl. Anyway, she was in her 20s. She alleged that her all-white half-brother, step-brother, who was 17, was allegedly touching on her kids, which were very small. I don't know the ages, but they were very small, like maybe 3 and 4. And it essentially, looking back at the whole case, I believe it was all a lie. I believe she imagined it, fibbed. She fabricated the whole thing. And so my point to that is she ended up in getting the kid brought in under scrutiny by his father and mother, which were of this, white mother, white father. So this was both of the mother and father's biological son, but the older sister, which was mixed, was the one that alleged against her brothers. They took this kid to the church at the unctioning of the female pastor. And if you look this up, it happened in Chadwicks, New York. CHADWICKS, New York. And that's only 5 minutes from where I'm sitting here in my truck. And so they essentially took him in there, and they would go on the Dave Koresh route, Branch Davidian, where they has these religious manipulations. They was gonna do some cleansing in him, and so they essentially was whipping him or hitting him and beating him down around his groin area and telling him he has a devil in him, and they was trying to make him confess that he did this, and he kept vehemently saying, I didn't do any of this, I didn't do any of that. And because he kept sticking to his story, they wanted an impression that he was lying as opposed to the older step sibling. So I'm trying to show you where narcissists can get you in a pickle And even in the courts, they'll have you in an interrogation where the person who is alleging something against you. This is where crime gets dicey, and a lot of the crimes that people are getting accused of, they're not even guilty of. But there'll never be true numbers about how many people who have gotten wrongfully convicted. But we're seeing this more and more and more. Impasse, we see it. But it's kind of seems like a losing battle because no one hears us at the end of the day. Have 100 people in the room and we can have evidence and we can make it make sense. But the narrative that people fall prey to is the narrative that she was raped, he was molested, because this stuff does happen. So the easiest thing to do is to believe something that we perceive that no one would make this up. And so that is the dicey thing that we're living in. And no one goes the extra mile to question not only the person, but they don't question their intuition. And so they go along with the narrative. But anyway, essentially spanked this kid or lashed him around his groin area, so much so to the point where they damaged him so bad he literally died from those wounds. And that's a story that happened here in Chadwick, New York. And this girl was in the county jail during the time I was doing my custody battle back and forth, wrongfully being arrested, blah blah blah. And to which I got my sternum broken in there too by a savage, vicious narcissist, I believe, looking back. And I heard he was deceased now, as I've told you in other videos. But back to point, this kid was savagely beaten by the mother and the father, and the pastor had allowed it. So all these people were in jail, brought onto they were brought under the microscope of being charged with this. And the thing about this pastor female, you could tell there was no accountability to what she was doing. They held out to the utmost. It was her and her two sons, so they were part of the church administration. They allowed this to go on. She pretended like she had no idea, she had no knowledge of it, but at the end of the day, they found out that she had consented this, and this was part of her little ritual of cleansing of sorts. And so everybody was throwing the blame on each other. And this mulatto girl that I'm speaking of, she was in jail when I was in jail. They were allowing her to walk through the hallway, whether she had to go to the nurse or she had to be called up to some kind of administration within the county, the jail, whether she had to go do blood work, whatever. She was free to just walk unsupervised, unhandcuffed, when most of the inmates, when you're being transported or moved from one area to the other, you have to be two things. Not always handcuffed, but you definitely have, unless you had propensity to be violent or you had a violent crime, to which this girl essentially was in that category. She didn't do this per se herself, but she was being tried, or she was being under the she was going through the judicial process of that. So she was able to just walk through freely, and if you saw her, she was gorgeous. This girl was so beautiful, and I think her persuasion and her charisma with the guards and just the jail as a whole allowed her to be able to do that. And this is scary when you look at let's say a beautiful female politician. She may not be running for, well, yeah, she could be running for president. She could be running for mayor. And I'm going to talk about this black mayor on another video. I've been following her stuff too. She is really ratchet, and I'm sure some of you guys probably even know who I'm talking about. I forget which city, but when I get details, I'm going to talk about this because I'm trying to highlight how narcissists will work in capacities and be in capacity. And this video is about it's basically a religious cult. Religious cult is what we would recognize it as, but it's deeper than that. Religious cults are stemmed from narcissistic personality disorder people. Adolf Hitler was a narcissist. Stalin was a narcissist. Vladimir Putin is a narcissist. Omar Gaddafi, a narcissist. Saddam Hussein, a narcissist. Fidel Castro, narcissist. And so it is many, many more, but the whole point of that is when we put too much emphasis on people because of their position, we lose sight of the fact that these people are fallible. And once you are vested too much into this so deeply, it's almost impossible for you to see your way out. And then you're none the wiser to tell someone and admit to someone, I really got duped and I was suckered into that administration and I was dead wrong. Or even just back away from it. You know, when you talk about Catholic faith and all the things that have been revealed about the Catholic faith, before I close, there are Catholics right now that are hard pressed to just see their way out of that administration. You know, not realizing you can hold to your faith if that's a faith of the Bible. If you want to believe what you believe and you continue to believe in God, if that was your primary desire to begin with, that should still remain. That should still be intact, notwithstanding the Catholic priest or the Protestant preachers or the Muslim leader, whatever your faith is. There are narcissists at the spearhead of all of this stuff of persuasion and manipulation. You have very few religious administrations that are sincerely doing what they're supposed to do, you know, in the name of God. It's always in the name of the narcissist. And so you have one life to live, and you damn well better get to realizing that you have to live your life in a way that is going to be fulfilling. You can't live your life in a facade, in an illusion, because that's what the narcissist does. They are training you to think, be, and act and behave like them. And it's no wonder we're living in a matrix society, because we are the few, but we're the chosen to bring about the change in this world that God so desperately wants us to do. And I say desperately, that may be a play on words there. He's not desperate at all, but he definitely is counting on us to right the wrongs of the world. And he's counting on us in a big way. So that was a story about this kid in church. So in your church or in your workplace, you're going to have people that are trying to be persuasive. They're essentially trying to force you to be their friend. And because you don't, they want to force a chaos that doesn't exist. And so they pull it out of their ass. Before you know it, they'll have you up in HR on the scrutiny if they don't have you terminated. They play so dirty, man. It is just so many things that I could think of right now. But for now, I'll just leave it where it's at. That being said, bless.